4 scandals. 4 times she was caught. 4 times someone else absorbed the blame. Out of context, accounting error. The system failed. I have no knowledge of any fraudulent activity. Ilhan Omar has spent 7 years dodging questions. Every hearing, every interview, every reporter who corners her in a hallway. The same routine every time. Deflect, point the finger somewhere else, walk away. Then Ben Shapiro sat across from her in a congressional hearing room and said something nobody had ever said to her face, not about any single scandal, about all of them at once. He said, "I'm not interested in your explanations, Representative. I'm interested in why the explanation is always the same. Every time you get caught, somebody else is to blame." Let me tell you what happens when somebody finally stops chasing the excuses and starts asking why there's always an excuse to chase. And before this hearing ended, Shapiro would read one number from her own financial disclosures that made the entire room laugh out loud. Omar did not laugh. The hearing was in Longworth 1310, House Oversight Subcommittee on Pandemic Relief Fraud, focused on Minnesota. Shapiro was invited as an expert witness. Omar was there because the subcommittee demanded it. She brought 3 lawyers. Shapiro brought nothing but his voice. In this hearing, only one of those things mattered. He didn't introduce himself, didn't thank the chairman, didn't make an opening statement about his qualifications. He looked directly at Ilhan Omar and started talking. Representative Omar, March 2019, you spoke at a CARE fundraiser. You described the September 11th attacks by saying, and I'm quoting directly, CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something. Those are your words, correct? Omar leaned toward her microphone. That quote has been deliberately taken out of context. I have addressed this issue on multiple occasions, and I believe Shapiro cut her off, polite, fast, like closing a door before someone finishes walking through it. Representative, I'll get to context first. Are those your words? I need a yes or a no. Yes, but thank you. February 2019, you tweeted about why Congress supports Israel. You wrote, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby." Your words correct. I have apologized for. Are those your words? Yes. Same month you said before Congress, I want to talk about the political influence in this country that says it is okay for people to push for allegiance to a foreign country. Your words? Yes, and the full context of that, 3 quotes, 3 confirmations. Thank you, Representative. Less than 60 seconds. 3 quotes confirmed. Omar never finished a single sentence. That is the speed of Ben Shapiro. If you've seen him before, you know that was him being polite. If you haven't seen him before, understand this. He talks faster than most people think, and he was just getting started. Here's what happened next. Shapiro stopped talking to Omar. He turned to the committee and said something that changed the entire shape of the hearing. Chairman, I did not come here to relitigate 3 old quotes. Congress already voted on them. The representative was removed from the Foreign Affairs Committee. That chapter is closed. I watched Omar's shoulders relax just slightly. She thought the hard part was done. She thought this was going to be another hearing where someone reads her old tweets. She says she already apologized and everyone moves on. She was wrong. But I want this committee to notice something. 3 quotes. 3 times the representative was confronted. 3 times she gave a version of the same response. Out of context. I didn't understand the history behind my words. You're misrepresenting what I said. He paused. 3 different statements, 3 different years, and every single time the fault belongs to the person who heard it, never to the person who said it. Another pause. This one deliberate. I would ask the committee to remember that because we are about to watch it happen again with $250 million. That was the moment the trap was built, not sprung, built. Shapiro was telling the room and every person watching at home, I'm going to show you a pattern. And every time Omar opens her mouth from this point forward, she will either break the pattern or prove it. There is no third option. Omar saw it. She's been in politics long enough to recognize a setup. So she reached for the shield she always reaches for. Mr. Shapiro, you sit here reading tweets from 2019 that I have already addressed, already apologized for, and that Congress has already acted on. I am the first black Muslim immigrant woman elected to Congress. I received more threats against my life than almost any member of this body. Over 14,000 credible threats last year alone. I have been physically attacked at my own town hall. And you want to spend this committee's time reading old social media posts. She is good at this, genuinely good. In 3 sentences, she moved from being the person questioned to being the person victimized. She's done this for 7 years, and it has worked every single time. Reporters back off. Committee chairs change the subject. The shield goes up and the questions stop. Shapiro did not raise his voice, did not argue about the shield, did not take the bait. He did something that almost nobody does when Omar plays that card. He agreed with the part that was true and walked right past the part that was a deflection. Representative, I believe you. I believe you received death threats. I believe the attack at your town hall was real and serious. That is not in question. What is in question is $250 million in federal money that was stolen from a program designed to feed hungry children in your district under a law that you personally wrote. And if the chairman allows, I would like to discuss that now. That is why Shapiro is different from every other person who has ever questioned Ilhan Omar. Everybody else fights the shield. They argue about whether she's really a victim. They argue about whether the tweets were really anti-Semitic. They argue about the shield while Omar walks out the back door. Shapiro didn't touch the shield. He walked past it and went straight for the money. And money doesn't care about your identity. Money leaves a trail. Money has receipts. If you came here to watch Ben Shapiro dismantle Ilhan Omar, you just saw the first wall come down. But that was the warm-up. Subscribe and share this right now. Because what Shapiro said next about a $250 million stolen from a children's meal program is the reason she did not want to be in that room. And it's when she stopped saying out of context and started saying, I have no knowledge. Shapiro shifted gears. His voice dropped, but the speed stayed the same. Representative, in March 2020, you introduced the Meals Act. That law allowed food distributors outside of school systems to receive federal reimbursements from child nutrition programs without the standard inspection and verification process. You remember introducing that law? Omar straightened. The Meals Act ensured that low-income children who depended on free school lunches could still eat when schools shut down during COVID. I am proud of that legislation and I stand by it. You should be proud of the intention. Now let me tell you about the result. And here's what you need to understand about what happened next. For the past 5 minutes, Shapiro had been running fast, cutting Omar off mid-sentence machine gun pace. Now he slowed down, not because he was tired, because the numbers he was about to say needed room to land. When Ben Shapiro slows down, the weight is about to get heavy. A nonprofit called Feeding Our Future used your law to register dozens of fake meal sites across Minnesota. These sites claim to be feeding thousands of children every single day. They were not feeding anyone. The food did not exist. The children did not exist. The meal sites were shell companies with fake addresses and fake invoices. $250 million in federal money that was supposed to buy meals for hungry kids was stolen. He let that number breathe. $250 million, then continued. That money went to luxury cars, to million-dollar real estate, to wire transfers, to bank accounts overseas, to vacations that the people running these fake meal sites took while children in Minneapolis went to bed without dinner. He turned to Omar. 65 people have been convicted so far. The woman who ran the entire scheme was sentenced to 42 years in federal prison. 42 years. And the chairwoman of the Minnesota State Fraud Committee said something specific about your law, Representative. She said she took the guardrails off so that billions of our tax dollars could be stolen. Omar's counsel leaned over and whispered. Omar ignored him. She had her answer ready. I have stated from the beginning that anyone who stole money intended for hungry children should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I have no knowledge of any fraudulent activity connected to any meal program. There it is. I told you to watch for it. In part one, the defense was out of context. Now, the defense is I have no knowledge. Different scandal, different year, same woman, same structure. The fault is never hers. She didn't know. She couldn't have known. Somebody else did it. But Shapiro was already 3 steps ahead. He had been waiting for those exact words. You have no knowledge. Okay, let me walk through what you do have, Representative. He counted on his fingers, 1 fact per finger. Each one short enough for every person listening to hold on to. 1. April 2020. You recorded a video for Somali TV Minnesota. You spoke in Somali directly to your community. You personally thanked a restaurant called Safari and told your viewers that Safari was distributing 2,300 meals every day to families and children in need. 1 finger up. That restaurant representative was the single largest fraud site in the entire Feeding Our Future network. The owner was convicted of stealing $16 million. Federal court records show the restaurant was not distributing 2,300 meals per day. It was not distributing 200 meals per day. It was distributing 0 meals. Not 1 child was fed. 2nd finger, you said 2,300 on camera. The court said 0. One of those numbers is true, Representative, and the person who said the other one is sitting in this room. 3rd finger, he didn't wait for a response. Your name appears 6 times in the trial exhibits from the case against the woman who ran the scheme. Emails and communications between your office and multiple defendants. 4th finger, you held your 2018 election night watch party at that same restaurant, the one whose owner was convicted of stealing $16 million from a children's meal program. 5th finger, and when the Minnesota State Fraud Committee invited you to come in and explain your connections to these convicted individuals, you missed the deadline to respond. When they moved to subpoena you for documents, your own party blocked the vote. He held up his open hand. 5 fingers, 5 facts. 5 connections, Representative. A video you recorded. Trial exhibits with your name on them, emails from your office, a party at the fraud restaurant, and a subpoena you refused to comply with. You say you have no knowledge, but you have a lot of evidence sitting very close to you. I've watched a lot of hearings. When a witness counts evidence on their fingers, it's usually for show. When Shapiro does it, it's for the people watching at home. 5 facts, 5 fingers. Simple enough for anyone to remember. Simple enough to repeat to the person sitting next to them on the couch. And impossible to explain away one at a time when they're standing together. Omar's voice went tight. I am not charged with any crime. No federal prosecutor has accused me of participating in fraud. What you are doing is insinuation dressed up as questioning. She's right. No prosecutor has charged her. That is a fact, and Shapiro did something that surprised me. He agreed. You're correct. You have not been charged. I am not a prosecutor. I am not charging you with anything. I am here as a witness, and I am asking you a question. He slowed down again. This time his voice changed. Not angry, not sarcastic, something closer to exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that comes from watching something obvious, being ignored by everyone in the room. There are children in Minneapolis who went to bed hungry during the pandemic. Real children, not the fake ones on the invoices. Real kids whose parents lost their jobs, whose schools were closed, whose only guaranteed meal was the one the government promised to provide. $250 million was supposed to reach those children. It did not reach them. It reached car dealerships and real estate offices and wire transfer counters sending cash to accounts overseas. He looked directly at Omar. You wrote the law that removed the guardrails. You appeared on camera promoting the restaurant at the center of the fraud. Your name is on the trial evidence. The woman now serving 42 years says she believes you knew, and your answer to all of it is 3 words. I have no knowledge. He looked at the committee. In the first 10 minutes of this hearing, the answer was out of context. Now the answer is I have no knowledge. Different scandal, different decade, same structure. Every time this representative gets caught near something, someone else is to blame. The context was wrong. The language was misunderstood. The system failed. She didn't know. It is never her. Not once in 7 years. That landed in the room like a stone dropped in still water. Not because it was loud, because it was true. And everyone sitting there had just watched it happen in real time. 2 different scandals, 2 different sets of excuses. Same woman reaching for the same shelf every single time. If you know someone who still thinks Ilhan Omar is just a misunderstood progressive who keeps getting unfairly attacked, send them this video right now. Because what comes next is when Shapiro opened her financial disclosures and the room started laughing. Shapiro's voice changed again, faster, sharper, like a man who's been building towards something for 20 minutes and can finally see it. Representative, I want to move to your congressional financial disclosures, the ones you personally filed for the years 2023, 2024, and 2025. Omar's counsel spoke immediately. Mr. Chairman, the representative's personal financial disclosures fall outside the stated scope of this hearing on pandemic relief fraud. Shapiro did not wait for the chairman to rule. Mr. Chairman, when this committee is examining financial irregularities connected to the representative's district, her legislation, and her community, her own financial disclosures are directly relevant, especially when those disclosures contain a $29 million discrepancy that she has not explained. The chairman paused for 1 second, then nodded. The witness may continue. Omar looked at her counsel. Her counsel looked at the table. That is the body language of a legal team that knows exactly what is about to happen and cannot do anything to prevent it. Shapiro picked up one piece of paper. The first time all morning he looked at anything written down. He read 3 numbers, one at a time, with silence between each one long enough for every person in that room and every person listening at home to hear the number, understand it, and feel it. Year 2023. Your husband, Tim Minette, owns stakes in 2 companies. A venture capital firm called Rose Lake Capital, and a California winery called EST Crew. On your 2023 congressional disclosure, you reported their combined value at $51,000. Pause. Year 2024, same 2 companies, same husband. New disclosure filed with Congress. New combined value between $6 million and $30 million. Longer pause. April 2026, you amended the 2024 disclosure. You changed the value of both companies to 0. You told the press it was an accounting error. He set the paper down, looked at the committee. $51,000, $30 million, 0, 3 consecutive years. 3 wildly different numbers for the same 2 companies owned by the same man. And the explanation is, our accountant made a mistake. He turned back to Omar. Representative, your constituents in Minneapolis work 2 jobs to pay their rent. They file honest tax returns every April. They report their actual income down to the last dollar because they know the IRS will come after them if they don't. And their representative in Congress filed a disclosure that was off by $29,949,000 and called it a clerical error. Omar started to respond. The original filing was based on incomplete information provided in good faith by my husband's business accountants. The amendment was filed voluntarily as soon as Shapiro was already talking. You filed the amendment 1 year later after the House Oversight Committee opened an investigation into the discrepancy, after the president publicly questioned the numbers on social media, after reporters began calling your office daily. The original filing sat on the public record for 12 months, showing you were worth up to $30 million, and you only discovered the error when other people started asking questions about it. He wasn't done. But I have one more number, Representative. This one is not from your disclosure. It's from court filings. He looked at his paper one last time. Your husband, Tim Minette, has been a political operative in Washington for nearly 20 years. He ran campaigns. He started a venture capital firm. He started a California winery. According to your 2024 disclosure, his companies were worth up to $30 million. That is what you told Congress. Pause. According to court documents filed in February 2024 inches, a lawsuit involving your husband's own business partner, Rose Lake Capital, had a total bank balance of $4,244. Somebody in the gallery laughed. Then another person. Then a low ripple moved through the room. Not because it was funny. Because the gap between $30 million and $4,244 is so enormous that the human brain cannot process it as deception. It processes it as comedy. The number is too small. The lie is too big. It breaks the scale. Omar did not laugh. Shapiro let the laughter die on its own. He did not smile. He was not performing. He was reading a court document. The winery EST crew, the one-year disclosure valued at up to $5 million. Court filings show it had $650 in its account. It stopped paying its winemaker in 2023. It filed to dissolve its business license this year. It is gone. He paused. And your newest disclosure filed last month. Your husband's total income for all of 2025 from both companies combined, between $200 and $1,000. Your joint net worth after debts somewhere between negative $80,000 and positive $95,000. He set the paper down, folded his hands, and stopped being an expert witness. He stopped citing numbers and court filings. He started talking like a man who had spent 30 minutes watching someone dodge and had finally run out of patience for it. He looked at Omar, then at the committee, then back at Omar. Representative, you described the murder of 2,977 Americans as some people did something. You blamed the people who heard it. You said support for Israel was all about the Benjamins. You blamed the language. You promoted a restaurant that stole $16 million from a children's meal program. You said you had no knowledge. You filed a disclosure showing $30 million in assets, then erased it overnight. You blamed your accountant. Each sentence shorter than the last, each one landing heavier. Every single time you get caught, Representative, someone else is at fault. The listener, the language, the system, the accountant. It is never you. Not once, not ever, in 7 years. He leaned forward. His voice dropped to almost nothing. Quiet enough that the microphone barely picked it up. Quiet enough that every person listening leaned in closer. At some point, this committee has to decide if it is never her fault, if it is always somebody else's mistake, if every answer is, I didn't know, or you're taking it out of context, or my accountant made an error, then when does this committee stop believing her? He sat back. Because I stopped believing her 3 scandals ago. And I think the people watching this stopped long before I did. Omar opened her mouth. Her counsel put a hand on her arm. She closed her mouth, opened it again, then leaned back in her chair and stared at the wall behind the chairman's head. Not at Shapiro, not at the committee, at nothing. For 7 years, I have watched Ilhan Omar walk into hearings, interviews, press conferences, and hallway ambushes with the same set of shields ready. Out of context, Islamophobia. Already addressed, no knowledge. Those shields have worked against every reporter who was afraid of being called a bigot for pressing harder. They have worked against every committee chair who didn't want the headline. They have worked against every Republican colleague who wasted their time attacking the shields instead of walking past them. They did not work in that room. Not because Shapiro hit harder than everyone else, because he never touched the shields at all. He ignored them completely. He laid every scandal next to every excuse and let the repetition do the work. And when you hear the same defense 4 times in a row for 4 different scandals across 7 years, you stop hearing a defense. You start hearing a tell. If you are still watching, you are here because you already knew. You knew before this hearing started. You knew before Shapiro said a single word. You knew that something was deeply wrong with a woman who calls the murder of 2,977 people something and cannot explain where $30 million went and refuses to answer questions about $250 million. Stolen from children. Subscribe. Share this with every person in your life who needs to hear it. These are the stories that will never be told on network television. We tell them here. The hearing continued for another 30 minutes. Other witnesses spoke. Procedural questions were asked. None of it mattered. The room had heard everything it needed to hear. Omar left through a side door. No press availability. No hallway statements. No tweets for the first 4 hours after the hearing ended, which for Ilhan Omar might be the longest public silence of her entire career. A woman who has never in her life walked past a microphone without stopping to talk into it, walked past 6 of them without opening her mouth. Shapiro stayed for 5 more minutes, answered 2 questions from other committee members, shook hands with staff, picked up the one piece of paper he had brought into the room, 3 numbers written on it in pen, 50, 1,000, 30 million, 0. He folded it once, put it in his jacket pocket, and was out of the building before Omar's motorcade had left the parking garage. That is also the speed of Ben Shapiro. There are retirees across this country who pay their taxes every April and never think about where the money goes. They trust that it goes somewhere good. Teachers who spent 40 years in classrooms and never made 6 figures. Veterans who came home from wars that most Americans forgot about and asked for nothing except the country to keep the promises it made when it sent them overseas. Grandparents who donated to school lunch programs because they believe that every child in America deserves to eat. $250 million of their money was supposed to feed hungry children in Minnesota. It bought Maseratis instead. It bought waterfront condos. It bought plane tickets to countries where the United States cannot recover the funds. The fraudsters spent money meant for children's milk on things that children will never see. 65 people have been convicted. The woman who ran it is serving 42 years. And the woman who wrote the law that opened the door says she had no knowledge. The woman who appeared on camera promoting the restaurant at the center of the scheme says she didn't know. The woman who filed a $30 million disclosure and then erased it says her accountant made a mistake. And the woman who described the deaths of 2,977 Americans with 7 words is still sitting in Congress, still drawing a salary paid by the same taxpayers whose money she cannot account for. Ben Shapiro did not walk into that hearing with a binder full of exhibits or a staff of researchers feeding him lines through an earpiece. He walked in fast. He talked fast. He laid 4 scandals next to 4 excuses and asked the one question that nobody in 7 years had ever asked Ilhan Omar to her face. At what point do you stop expecting us to believe you? She had no answer. For the first time in 7 years, Ilhan Omar had no answer at all. 4 scandals. 4 times she got caught. 4 times somebody else took the blame. The context, the language, the system, the accountant. And one hearing room that finally said no